innovative, revolutionary, stellar development, purest universal knowledge, in a transformative, futuristic design. The Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit. The very first new evolutionary spaceship technology has been rolled out for mass production. Our Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit is constructed from high-quality materials carefully selected by our team of experts. Embedding the essence of the new Gans plasma science and technology, it uses collective plasma field technology for changing and enhancing the environment of the body of the man. This new plasma enhancement changes the environment of the body to allow it to return to its natural balanced energetic condition, as in the womb of the mother, allowing every cell in the body of the man to find its natural original field strength balance. The shape and field distribution in this new space plasma technology replicates the inner structure of the universe and replicates the balance fields from which the man was created at the point of inception in the womb of the mother, not only receiving balance in the physical, but also in the emotional sense too. For the first time in the history of man, a system has been developed and delivered which not only enhances the physical body of the man, but also enhances the emotional part of the user of the system, hence reducing and eliminating many problems that could not be solved in the world of science, to bring the body of the man into near perfection, as at the time of birth. This new spaceship technology can be within the reach of every man today and can be ordered by medical practitioners, sports specialists and healthcare centres. The Universal Enhancement Spaceship Unit, the future you have been waiting for, is here. The journey from space to spaceship technology has started. Every order is subject to a contractual agreement and might require additional accessories priced separately for applications according to each case. You can order or contact us at office@at.kfm.global for additional information.
Welcome everyone to the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group on Wednesday, October 16th, 2019. This is a broadcast of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Education Department, part of the public teachings in English. My name is Rick Crammond. I'm the host, as usual, on this show for the last few years here. And we have special guest host today, Flint. Thank you for launching today's program. And we also have John as co-host today as well. So I guess it's probably time to get into today's program. And I usually ask if anyone has something they'd like to present, especially if you can't be here for the second or the rest of the show and need to get something out because you're busy going to some other show or whatever. Perhaps you would like to go ahead with something. And otherwise we'll carry on with whatever I happen to carry on with. I have a partial game plan here. Gianni or anybody else have something they'd like to present for today? The crowd is quiet so far.
Hi, Rick. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Gianni.
Hoy estoy afuera y solo escucho.
Today I'm outside and I'm only listening to you all.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Are the plants still growing there? Las plantas siguen creciendo ahí en el oasis.
Sí, Rick. Sí, sí, John. Está creciendo y floreciendo, claro.
¿Y qué comentan tus vecinos? What do your neighbors comment?
Solo miran y piden legumbres y frutas y semillas. Y agua, claro.
¿Se quieren enganchar?
¿Sabes qué pasa? Ellos no les gusta cultivar. Lo hacen para que se vea que hacen algo. Solo eso.
My neighbors ask for several of my production, and they're not very keen on planting themselves.
Y además de eso, donde vivo aquí es la calle del alcalde.
And I live on the same street the Lord Mayor lives on.
Y como todos tienen trabajo donde ganan mucho dinero,
And as they've all got good earnings,
no le interesa cultivar nada.
they're not eager in planting their own production.
Pero el alcalde fue a visitarnos
The Lord Mayor has gone to visit us
y para ver qué hacemos aquí.
to see what we are doing here.
Y le ha gustado lo que hacemos.
He has liked what we are doing,
y nos ayuda en los trabajos que hacemos con los niños en el colegio.
and he helps us out with the job or the work we're doing with the kids at school.
Ahora, en el próximo mes, en día 10,
And next month on the 10th of November,
tenemos una presentación para 40 niños
we've got a presentation, looking forward to it, with 40 kids
de 4 países.
from 4 different countries:
España, Grecia, Turquía y Bulgaria.
Spain, Greece, Turkey, and Bulgaria.
Y vienen aquí en un programa de encuentros entre colegios.
And they're coming over here to a meeting between different schools.
Y vamos a presentar la tecnología del plasma
And we're going to present them give them an introduction to the plasma technology
y preparar la comida sin tratamiento térmico
and prepare all the foods for them without thermal production or heat, using heat.
y claro la preparación de la comida con aquaplasma.
And using plasma water in the food.
Lo hacemos en todas las presentaciones
We do this in every presentation.
y el sábado y el domingo pasado hemos hecho una presentación en una ciudad de Rumanía.
And last Sunday we did another presentation in a different city here in Romania.
Y en un restaurante donde fue la presentación hemos empezado el calentamiento plasmático.
And we did this in a restaurant, and we installed a plasmatic weather heating system there.
Y aquí hemos empezado también un pequeño laboratorio.
And we have started a small lab here at my place.
Y en adelante, en el sitio que se llama Eden,
And in the other place, which we call Eden,
Eden, el espacio de manifestación a la totalidad,
the manifestation of the space into totality,
preparamos el laboratorio para hacer el Gans para pequeños oasis en la zona.
with our idea is to have a lab to produce enough nano elements and Ganses for the different oases we're looking forward to.
Y también en el restaurante, comida sin tratamiento térmico.
And in this other restaurant also, teaching them how to produce foods without having to use fire or heat.
Ahora hemos puesto 26 infinitos alrededor del sitio.
We have put up 26 different infinites in this restaurant.
Y dentro algunos dispositivos y hemos pulverizado con plasma de CO2 y ZNO.
And we'll also spray the whole place with the two basic Ganses.
Han participado en los 2 días 45 personas.
45 people have been present in these 2 days of this presentation.
Y fue muy curioso que llegaron profesores universitarios.
And it's very curious that many university professors have come along to attend
De la Universidad de Medicina y Farmacia.
from the University of Medicine and Pharmacy.
Y algunos quimistas que fueron muy atentos para ver qué hacemos.
And some chemists that have been very attentive to what we are doing.
Y así, solo para preparar la sala de reuniones con el Gans y dispositivos,
And just by preparing this place with the Gans and this plasma water and the different accessories,
han podido sentir diferente de un día a otro.
they have managed to realize what this does in this place.
Y eso porque en el sitio no hay ningún tipo de calefacción.
Because they don't use any stoves for heating the place up.
La tema del encuentro fue el calentamiento plasmático.
The theme we presented there was the warmth of the plasmatic environment.
Bueno, eso es lo que hemos hecho y gracias a todos.
This is what we have done lately, and thanks for all you listening to this.
Tengo algunas fotos de ese encuentro. Si queréis, puedo ponerlo para que se vea un poquito.
I've got some pictures of this meeting. If you want me, I can show them.
Does it show any children?
¿Mostrás alguna criatura?
Pequeñita no, está Dora quien ha ayudado a preparar, pero está solo en un vídeo. que no lo voy a poner.
No, the only kid that he has, but on a video which he won't show, is the little girl that's with them. La llaman la criatura Sol, ¿no?
No te he oído bien.
Adora, ¿la llaman la criatura Sol o cómo la califican?
Para los que lo vean, es un poquito raro porque como no tiene frío y está muy viva, muy dinámica y todo el mundo se enamora de ella.
This little girl is only 4 years old, and she practically doesn't wear any clothes, and she doesn't feel the cold, and everybody falls in love with her.
Yeah,
además
that's fine, but if we put a picture like that on this show,
Yeah, but
then,
it's not a picture. No
we
tenés
have
en la
to,
foto, ¿no?
we would have to republish it.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, yeah, as long as there's
No la muestres a ella.
I just
Sí.
asked because you need full permission now to have any pictures of children on the internet when it's broadcast, especially in YouTube and whatnot. So
En YouTube solo te anulan la película o la presentación si tenés alguna foto o vista de
Sí.
alguna criatura.
Sí, ya lo sé y por eso mejor no los voy a mostrar ahora porque no están en orden, así que mejor no.
He hasn't put them in order, so it's best if he doesn't present them because he doesn't know where some picture of her may come up.
right, yeah. So that'd be better to put together a slideshow or something. Yep.
Sí, ordenarlos y mostrarnos a otro momento.
Ok, quería decir solo que Adora habla de los Gans con 4 años que tiene.
She's only 4 years old and she talks about the different Ganses.
Y explica cómo se ponen las probetas en el agua.
And she explains to the elder people how to put the different vials in the water.
Hey, you said vials. Very good, John. Thank you.
Thank you. I remembered.
It's tough, isn't it? It took me a long time when I was young and had to get over that one.
Y lo que quería decir otra cosa, hemos traído botes de 5 litros con probetas de CO2 y ZNO dentro.
We have brought several containers of 5-liter containers with different Ganses in them.
Y todos los participantes han querido beber agua, solo aqua plasma.
And all the participants there only wanted to drink the plasma water.
Teníamos los botes puestos en un sitio y todo el mundo preguntaba, ¿puedo tomar aqua plasma? Claro que sí.
And everybody asked if they could drink this plasma water, and as usual, I would say, yes, go ahead.
Así que hemos regalado aqua plasma, unos 30 litros.
So we have given away about 30 liters of plasma water.
Y también otros 10 con que hemos preparado la comida.
And another 10 which was used to prepare the food.
Y cada participante se ha llevado el gas de CO2 y ZNO.
And each participant took some CO2 and zinc oxide Gans to their homes.
Y además de eso, lo femenino y lo masculino juntos han hecho bobinas para aprender cómo se hace una bobina.
Both women and men prepared some coils to be able to take them over to their homes.
Y fue un encuentro maravilloso.
And it was a marvelous encounter.
Y gracias a todos para poder compartir eso. Gracias.
And thank you for listening.
John, would Gianni take a question?
¿Podrías
Yes.
escuchar una pregunta?
Sí, sí.
Yes, go ahead.
Gianni, he speaks of often not cooking the food. The food is uncooked. He's making the bread and so on. Now, Mr. Keshe had said that man has been nano coding ever since we've discovered fire, even though we didn't know we were nano coding, which by cooking the meat or something, you're opening up the atomic structure to release the fields, or in the wok as well, which Mr. Keshe likes the wok. But why is Gianni not using heat or cooking?
¿Entendiste, Gianni? ¿O querés que te lo traduzca?
Sí, yo no entendí, pero si lo traduces está bien para los españoles.
Fenómeno. Mark pregunta, ¿por qué si Mr. Keshe nos ha dicho de que desde el principio de la civilización el hombre siempre ha nano recubierto en en su cocina, especialmente con el wok en la China o en Japón? ¿Por qué insistes en hacer la comida en forma cruda o sin calor?
Pues John, no es cruda, uno.
Exacto.
Y la segunda es que utilizamos el sol.
The first thing is I don't cook in a raw way. I cook with the sun.
Y he trabajado unos años en terapias alternativas.
And I've worked many years with alternative therapies.
Y muchas personas se han equilibrado teniendo cánceres y otras patologías terminales.
Many a person has got rid of cancer and other terminal pathologies with this food.
Utilizando la comida sin tratamiento térmico.
Yeah, utilizing or feeding off these different foods.
Además de eso, yo como así de toda mi vida.
I've always eaten this way all my life.
Y nunca estuve enfermo.
And I've never been ill at all.
Y he estudiado un poco de medicina.
And I've studied a bit about medicine.
Y en el trabajo con los médicos que trabajan con las terapias alternativas.
And I've worked with many a doctor that works with alternative medicine.
Ellos utilizan la comida para ayudar a la gente a reequilibrarse.
And these doctors use it for giving the ill people their own normal balance.
Hay algunos elementos que sí necesitas cocerlos.
There are some different foods that have to be cooked.
Pero son muy pocos.
But they're very few.
Y ahora con el aquaplasma he visto cuánto deprisa una persona se puede reequilibrar.
And adding the plasma water to these foods, I've observed how fast the people can recuperate their balance.
Y he escuchado lo que ha dicho el señor Keshe.
And I've listened to what Mr. Keshe has said.
Pero también he escuchado que la comida no es necesaria cuando aprendemos a alimentarnos del universo.
And I've also heard him say that we don't have to feed ourselves, we can feed off the universe.
Y entonces lo que conozco hoy.
And then what I know now at this moment.
Utilizo ese método y lo veo como una transición.
And use this moment as a transition moment.
Entre la comida tradicional.
between the traditional food
comida sin tratamiento térmico,
and food without any hot treatment,
hasta alimentarnos de los campos del universo.
and the next step would be to feed ourselves from the universal not encounter, the surroundings.
Y he visto por experiencia en unos 25, 30 años
And as my experience in the last 20 to 30 years,
que la comida tradicional se come mucho para alimentarnos,
we eat a lot to feed ourselves with cooked food.
los que comen sin tratamiento térmico comen muy poco,
The people that eat my foods, which are produced without any heat, they eat very much less normally.
y es muy sencillo pasar a alimentarnos de los campos del universo.
And it's a very easy step to learn how to eat from the universal surroundings.
También eso es lo que comprendo en mi punto de vista, porque también si estamos mirando los niños,
And also I understand if we watch the kids
después de nacerse,
after being born,
empieza con leche,
they start with the mother's milk,
después frutas y verduras,
then after this with fruits and vegetables,
después carne y otras cosas.
and after this meat and other things.
Yo lo veo como un camino al revés.
I look at this as a going back on the different roads civilization has used.
Eso es mi punto de vista y gracias por la pregunta.
This is my point of view, and thank you for your question.
Claro.
Very nice, Johnny. It's an interesting conversation, this idea. There's a movement called the raw foods movement, and that's involves not using heat for foods, sometimes using fermentation or other ways to break down the food somewhat, but it's about those raw enzymes, and they actually help to digest the food instead of relying on the body to produce the enzymes in order to digest. So by heating after a certain temperature, it inactivates those enzymes that are needed for digesting the very foods that are being heated. So there is some logic to that whole idea. Also, the idea that a lot of the energy that we get from food, we use to digest the food. They did an experiment one time with college students and sent them to Antarctica, I believe it was. And they had them go on a raw meat diet, which would be, mostly the local foods like blubber or different, maybe seal or fish or whatever. And it took them a couple of weeks. It was kind of repulsive to eat this raw meat diet initially. But after 2 weeks, they totally adapted to it and they actually enjoyed it. And then after a period of time, they were there for several months, they had them eat cooked meat, and they got sick from the cooked meat. And they went back to the raw meat diet to straighten themselves out. So I thought that was interesting. They did that as an experiment to see what the effect, because they know that many Aboriginal, indigenous peoples, rely on raw meat. That's what, you can look at sushi as one example, but it could be various kinds of meat, anything from seal meat to certain kinds of fish, both in the Arctic and Antarctic areas. So it's interesting. Sometimes we think the cooking helps to break down the toughness and so on, but at the same time, it produces a whole set of stuff, as Jedi is itemizing in the chat here about the
Rick,
benzopyrenes and so on.
do you recall the story Mr. Keshe told about a very rich man who eats one steak a day, and it's cooked like it's like your shoe leather, and he's trained his body to absorb everything he needs out of that one piece of meat or something, Mr. Keshe was saying, just while we're on the food topic.
Yeah, so it's the thing is, as Mr. Keshe says, only 20% of our energy we get from our food, and 80% from the environment. So the environment and the impressions of the environment make a big difference as to what kind of energy we actually get out of the food.
And normally half of the energy you get out of eating food is you need it to digest your food. And
That's
another
right.
commentary that Johnny has said is that this young girl that lives with them, she loathes eating meat, and she thinks it stinks to high heaven.
Stinks. Yeah, that was funny.
And also, if you look at mammals, they all eat raw food. They don't cook their own food.
Yeah, you don't see the wolves sitting around the fire cooking up lamb or whatever.
Yeah, but when you tell somebody you can absorb fields, or you are absorbing fields, that it's a very strange concept. Of course, we know more that that's what the body's doing is just extracting the magnetical and gravitational energy package out of that food and so on. But then I say to them, well, you believe you're made in the image of the creator, right? Yeah. And then I say, well, do you think the creator eats at Burger King?
Well, maybe he does, because he can do whatever the heck he wants. But that's interesting, yes.
Yeah, another equivalent thing I tell the people is think of your umbilical cord, or mother's umbilical cord. According to the doctors, all the food, the creature that's being born inside her is feeding off that through that umbilical cord, and that's just a vein that connects the mother with a child. The child is absorbing all the energy from its surroundings.
Yes, and the point was made too that before that cord is formed, there's actually growth as well. So, and that's from absorbing directly from the environment rather than through that life cord.
And it starts by the head, where the soul is. It's a little guppy.
¿Puedo comentar una experiencia?
Sí, adelante.
En esta universidad hace 25 años.
And this university that the people have come along where I've been talking in this restaurant. Sí, adelante.
No en el restaurante.
¿No? En la universidad de ahí cerca donde estás vos.
No, John, hace 25 años hemos hecho un experimento.
25 years ago, we've done an experiment at a university.
100 personas
100
Hemos-
people.
nos hemos alimentado un año solo con leche y miel.
We've only fed off honey and milk
Eso fue
for a
para
whole year.
sí, eso fue para el experimento de sin comida.
This was done to experiment how to feed without any other food.
Y por ejemplo, la leche y el miel en el año de que estoy hablando,
And sí, adelante.
y solo tomar un kilo de miel al mes y leche, 1 litro de leche para 3 días.
And each person fed off a liter of milk for each 3 days and a kilogram of honey for the whole month. Nothing
Y,
else.
sí, y las personas que han hecho eso se han equilibrado el cuerpo.
And all the people that intervened in this have found the balance of their body.
Y muchos han cambiado su vida totalmente
And many have changed their lives completely.
porque lo que llamamos la digestión se ha cambiado totalmente.
What we call the digestion has changed completely.
Y después de eso hemos empezado a hacer la pausa de cualquier tipo de alimentación física.
And after this, we have paused in the normal eating customs.
Y algunos de los que han participado en el experimento hemos pasado 90 días sin comida.
Many of us have been up to 90 days without eating.
Sin comida, y eso significa sin agua, sin nada de la fisicalidad.
Not even water, nothing whatsoever.
Trabajando casi 20 horas al día.
Working up to 20 hours a day.
Y en ese momento hemos construido una fábrica para productos naturales sin fuego.
And this experience we did by building a factory for different products which we are making without any heat or fire.
Y también con Jetta hemos hecho el camino de Santiago andando de 20 a 40 kilómetros al día.
And also another experience I've done together with Jetta is the Santiago traveling excursion, 20 to 30 kilometers a day,
Sin comer
without eating.
y solo alimentarnos con los campos del universo.
Only feeding off the universal fields.
Y de entonces, para nosotros la comida solo es para disfrutar y muy, muy poco.
And for us, ever since, food is only for pleasure, and we eat very little.
He comprobado casi todos los tipos de comida que se hacen en este mundo.
I have tried practically every food that has been made on this world.
Y no tenemos ningún problema para comer cualquier cosa.
And we have no problem in eating whatsoever.
Pero del momento que estamos introduciendo la comida hasta eliminarla, no tardamos más de 2 o 3 horas.
And we only take about 2 to 3 hours to get rid of the food after ingesting it.
Y como ha dicho el señor Keshe, que también en la zona digestiva se absorbe solo los campos de la comida y no la comida.
And also, I've heard Mr. Keshe say that we only absorb the fields through our intestines.
Eso fue para nosotros muy claro.
this has been very clear for us.
Hemos hecho Gans de comida, Gans de plantas y hierbas.
We have made different ganses of different herbs and food,
Lo tenemos en los botes con agua, las probetas con ese Gans.
and we got the vials with all these different production products.
Y tomándolo es mucho mejor de cómo comer.
And drinking this Gans waters is much better than having to eat.
Pero somos conscientes que eso me pasa porque ya tenemos una experiencia de antes.
And I'm also conscious that we've already got the previous experience.
Y por eso estamos trabajando en una transición para mostrar una transición que es más fácil para todos.
And this, I'm conscious that we're teaching the people how to grow through a transition that is good for all of us.
Y gracias.
And thank you.
One quick follow-up. I heard Mr. Keshe say that milk was the Gans of the cow. Would Gianni consider honey the Gans of a bee? Is that a Gans also?
¿Entendiste a Mark? Mark dice, ha escuchado decir a Mr. Keshe que la leche es el Gans de la vaca. ¿Y vos considerás que la miel es el Gans de la abeja?
Sí, así es.
Yes, that's so.
Thank you.
And that would likely apply to maple syrup as well, which is directly comes from the sap of the maple tree, which would be the Gans of the tree in many ways, the blood of the tree.
Yeah, maple syrup mainly comes from Canada, doesn't it?
Canada and the northeast of the US as well, in Maine and New Hampshire, I think.
Yeah, I remember the Lyle's maple syrup, but I've also read some commentaries on a negative way of looking at maple syrup. I don't know why.
I haven't heard any negative things about it really, other than sometimes it's cut by the producers with honey or some other cheaper alternative to cut it.
Yeah, just like the bees honey, they do the same thing.
John,
Yeah.
Sí,
También-
adelante.
también puedo decir el experimento que hemos hecho en Oasis Provence, y Úrsula está también y puede hablar de eso. Hemos hecho, bueno, en Provencia hemos hecho el experimento, pero también en muchos sitios donde hemos preparado la comida y dejarlo en la mesa. Y solo por pasar cerca de ella, ya no tenías tanto hambre.
The experience we've done in Oasis Provence, where Ursula is that by preparing the foods and leaving them there and just being near them, we have fed off them without having to consume them.
Y algunos que han participado ahí, le he dicho con 2 meses antes que vamos a comer solo una vez al día. Y pasó eso.
And many of the people that have been there, I've told them 2 months in advance that they would only eat once a day, and they've been happy with this.
Y también donde hemos tenido las presentaciones, estamos preparando la comida y dejarlo así. Y nunca tuvimos que comer más de una vez al día.
And in many of the places where I've prepared these different foods, the people have realized they only need to eat once a day.
Y además, donde están los campos plasmáticos generados por el plasma, que hacemos, los Ganses, los reactores, todo eso, es muy, muy amplificada.
And where we prepare the environment with the ganses and the different accessories, the feeding is increased with all these additions.
Y tenemos una persona que está pensionada que me ha contado que se ha arreglado su circulación del sangre una semana, solo ha tardado una semana, no tuve que tomar ninguna pastilla después de una semana que del encuentro.
Uh-huh. An elderly person has told us that after a week being with us, she has regularized her blood circulation. She hasn't got to consume any medicine anymore.
Otra persona no tuve que echar la insulina porque tenía la glicemia normal.
And another diabetic person has normalized her blood sugar. She hasn't had to use insulin.
Y esto vamos a prepararlo para testimoniales, para enviarlo a la fundación.
And I'll prepare this for the next testimonial meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's excellent, Johnny. Very good. I know for myself personally, in terms of fasting, that at the end of 10 days of fasting with a combination of maple syrup, lemon juice, and cayenne pepper, I had more energy than at any point in my life after 10 days of no solid food. And I realized then very acutely that the energy I had was not related to food, but to the ability to digest the fields, you might say, or to be able to, that digestion process is when we turn that, what we call food, into Gans inside of our body, and then into plasma in order to extract the energy out of it, and then back into Gans and back into nano and out the other end, as Mr. Keshe said before. So you can go a step further, you can skip some steps, because if you don't have all the residue to get rid of and deal with and have the body sort out and spend the energy to go through all that process, then it just it's a big relief, and the body has extra energy left over in order to do deep inner healing and get in touch with the soul, and all kinds of wonderful things can happen under those conditions. As long as you do it in a way that it's voluntary and it's not thrust upon you that you're in a bad situation or have to starve because there's no food available in your community and a war zone or something like that. But even then it may be that it helps people get in touch with themselves in a way. Sometimes the homeless person with no food is, if you look them in the eye, they're more clear than most of the other people that are stuffing themselves full of food. Anyway, it's an interesting topic, and it's definitely related to the idea of going to space. And like Mark says, what about this metaphor of the land of milk and honey that we hear about What's the name of the place of the land of milk and honey? I'm thinking Goshen, but I'm not sure why. I think that's just a local name in Eastern Canada. Anybody have any feedback of that?
For Jews, it's Canaan.
Canaan, sometimes it's called. Is that right?
Canaan, it's a land promised from God to Moses for taking the slave from
Oh, I see.
Asia is my memory. Oh.
Yeah, I see now in Wikipedia it says the milk and honey refers to the promised land of the Jewish tradition, a land flowing with milk and honey. And that's supposedly the state of Israel. It's also an album by John Lennon in 1984, Milk and Honey. Milk and Honey is an Israeli band. Pardon me?
También en los cuentos, los dioses tenían el ambrosia y el néctar, la miel y el leche. John, ¿puedes traducir?
Yes, and in the different stories, we're told that the Ambrosians had the milk and honey as their feed.
Right.
Oh,
And
los ambrosianos,
ambrosia,
dijeron. Yeah.
ambrosia, I think it's interpreted the food of the gods.
Huh, interesting.
Yes.
I thought of the land of Goshen. It's I remember my uncle and grandfather and maybe my parents talking about this, and the land of milk and honey and the land of Goshen. I can't. It's from my childhood. I haven't heard of the word for decades. I just looked it up. Land of Goshen is the Hebrew name of an area in the Nile Delta in ancient Egypt. So it's maybe, oh, I see. And in Canada, there's actually a place called Goshen in Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada. And also in South Africa, there's a Goshen as well. So, and there's many of them in the United States. There's a couple of dozen Goshens in the United States. So interesting. I'm not sure what the direct connection is there, but I'm sure there is a connection. So I'm thinking, well, maybe in this land of milk and honey, that's how, as Gianni was explaining, maybe that's what they survived on, it's what they lived on. They didn't need anything else. They didn't have need for all the milk and, or rather the meat and potatoes and vegetables and all the rest of it. They just needed milk and honey, and maybe they were busy with their, higher ideals and were possibly an advanced kind of civilization that way.
I imagine the milk they talked about must have been sort of a yogurt, a sour milk.
Well, that could be. That's most likely, yes. And yogurt is like food of the gods in the way it's alive and it can be very sustaining. And the culture is passed down from generation to generation for many decades, if not hundreds or thousands of years. Each family has their own variety of bacteria, you might say, that that makes up the yogurt. And of course, the honey would be, each honey variety would be different depending on which field and which area and maybe different parts of the continent. If you only had milk and honey as your two commodities, perhaps you would do quite a bit of trade in all the variations of those yogurts and honeys that would be available. You go into the supermarket and you've got aisle aisle after aisle of all the variations of yogurts and kefirs and honeys. Interesting idea.
Well, if those milk and honey are Ganses, and we know Ganses are little suns, right? So both must contain a significant amount of energy.
Yes,
absorbable.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. If you look at maple syrup in the same way as honey in a way, I mean, it's the energy for the tree in order for it to grow. It sends that sap out to the leaves and in the spring and so on to stimulate. And
right,
it's
and you're not
full of sugar. It's already that sap. It already has a sweetness to it. Each tree is different. Each tree actually, as a kid, when your taste buds are really sensitive, you can actually taste the difference between each tree. Some of them are a little bit more sour and some of them are very sweet, and you know which tree to go to and try to drain the sap bucket on that one.
but it's not like you're killing the tree. You're not killing the soul of the tree. You're not killing the soul of the cow to consume the milk, and you're not killing the bee to consume the honey.
Right, exactly. You're sort of borrowing and allowing them to do a bunch of work for you, and it means a little less leaves that the tree might have, or a little more work it has to do to make more sap or something like that. And the bees have to work a little harder and try to do their thing, but it's a beautiful process in a way. You're allowing these other beings to make the food for you without harming them. So it seems like a bit of a win-win situation, especially if you consider we might be growing the trees with the best of conditions because we want them to be big and strong, so they have lots of sap in them, or we're making sure there's lots of bees around, so we're making sure there's lots of flowers and whatever it is your specialty of your honey is, different crops, clover or certain flowers, and that'll be the taste and smell of your particular honey based on where it comes from, the exact conditions. So it's a beautiful process. It really makes sense in the future. Instead of killing, why not just borrow? Let's say.
Well, I do like
the
the
spaceships have tanks of yogurt and honey, and that's it for the supplies.
No, he was saying, Mr. Keshe was saying, in the body enhancement unit, we don't have to hydrate you. We just give you the fields of the water, and the body converts it right into water. So if you had a body in space, you do the same. If you had a physical body in space.
I only had a body, maybe we'll be saying. Gee, I wish I had a body. Just bang, back to Earth as soon as you think that. One of the most dangerous thoughts in space would be, gee, I wish I had a body. If you were out there without your body. I remember the time that I haven't had a lot of conscious dreams, you might say, but there's once where I felt I really did go off into space. I found myself in this darkness of the void as this pinpoint of attention, and thinking to myself, this is after I sort of blasted off the planet. I felt myself accelerating out into space. I had lied down to rest, but it was in that in-between state between being awake and being asleep, just before going to sleep. And I actually had this visual, very sort of dramatic thing of just like being in a rocket, being shot off into space. And then presto, being out there in the voidness of space, but without the rocket, without a spacesuit, just there as me and my attention, just as a pure consciousness, you might say.
Yeah,
And
it
then
sounds.
I remember one thought came in, just I had no thoughts. There's no thoughts in that space other than what came up was, oh wow, if I wake up like this in the morning, I won't be able to go to work. And
Rick, preparando las
with that
fotos.
silly thought, when it's just like bang, right back into the body and right back to Earth. And
Yeah,
the
it seems
learning
like
process. Careful what you think.
you went along with the physicality as an observer, just what Mr. Keshe is talking. And this is even before you met Mr. Keshe, yeah?
Oh yeah, this is many decades ago, when I was quite young.
Because that's what he's stressing, that the physicality can go along with the soul as an observer.
Yes, but if it starts to interfere and get its will in the way, then it could drag things back to the Earth. It kind of goes, well, mommy, I want to go home. Okay, here we go, back home again. It's our physicality can be a bit of a whiner sometimes when going on trips.
Johnny says he's got the pictures ready, the session. He's got rid of the kids' pictures.
Holy cow, he's a fast worker. Okay, thank you, Johnny. Take it away.
Okay. You cannot start screen share with the other participants sharing.
Yeah, it's not supposed to say that, but I'll stop sharing and allow it all to work right. Gianni, if you turn your speaker down a bit, there's quite a bit of feedback going on through your, I think through your speaker phone. Maybe you can just turn the volume down a bit and that'll help with that. Can you translate, John?
Yeah. Podría bajar el volumen de tu parlante porque se mete en tu micrófono.
Ok. ¿Se puede ver la imagen?
Sí, los salames.
That's
Sí,
much better. It only happens when somebody else talks. It's okay when you talk.
¿Me escuchan mejor ahora?
Sí, sí.
Ok, aquí es el pan hecho sin tratamiento térmico, pero al horno del sol.
These are all different breads we have made in a raw way, but done in the oven of our sun.
Y aquí en los platos también hay cosas hechas con legumbres que están copiando el gusto, el aroma de carne.
We produce a mixture of different cereals which have the taste of meat and the appearance also, by the looks of it.
Los que han comprobado no podrían creer que no están hechos con carne.
The people that have tried this can't believe there is no meat in this.
Y detrás son los vasos con aquaplasma con eprubeta dentro.
And behind the lady, we can see the different vials with ganses and water.
Y aquí tenemos las bobinas con que hemos empezado los reactores y el agua destilada que también está tomando el sol.
Here we could see the the different coils that are being prepared with caustic and the demineralized water, and they're taking in the sun also.
Aquí son unas galletas dulces.
These are some sweet biscuits.
Meat de legumbres.
Yeah, this looks like meat, but it's different vegetables.
Aquí también.
Here other different types. Certainly looks like meat.
What's giving it the red color? The beets, beet juice.
Yep.
Las bobinas antes de empezar los reactores, las bobinas están hechas en medio cáustico.
Yeah, these coils, these special coils, I've been making them for quite a while, and he does them with caustic soda.
Aquí se puede ver el contacto que lo hacemos como un condensador.
Here you could see the way we connect the different coils. The connection looks more like a condenser, a capacitor.
Aquí preparando la pizza.
Here we're preparing some pieces.
Y esto es un vídeo. ¿Puedo poner el vídeo? No es muy largo.
Can I show this video? It's not very long.
Yes, sure.
Aquí utilizamos mayonesa, legumbres y la base hecho con cereales.
¿Cómo es que la mayonesa es tan blanca? ¿No usan el amarillo del huevo?
Se puede hacer varios tipos de mayonesa sin huevo.
Ah, this is mayonnaise is prepared without any eggs. That's why it's not yellow. It looks more like cream.
Los que cuando hacemos las presentaciones, también algunos que quieren pueden hacerlo, lo hacemos juntos.
With some of the people like to intervene in the making these different foods.
Y así aprenden en el momento y lo que aprenden es el coraje de hacerlo.
And the nice thing about it is they learn how to do these raw foods, and they get the courage to do this afterwards.
Esto es en la terraza de Eden.
This is in the terrace we have there in Eden.
Is that cheese that you're putting on there?
¿Es queso lo que están poniendo ahí o qué es?
Sí, queso.
Yes, it's cheese.
Es la parte final ahora de la pizza.
This is the last part of the pizza making. Se ve muy sabrosa.
Sí, sí. Pero cuando se preparan así, se utiliza el agua plasma, se necesita muy pocos legumbres y frutas.
When we prepare these pizzas with plasma water, you need very little amount of vegetables and different other production seeds or whatever. When can we get down to eating? Are we invited at this table? ¿Nos invitas a la mesa?
Sí, aquí fueron 30 personas. Tengo muchos vídeos y menos fotos, pero lo pongo así que se puede ver, ¿no?
Sí, fenómeno. Here we had 30 people come along to this encounter.
Hemos hecho, la idea fue para la transición, copiar la comida tradicional con carne, con eso, pero todo hecho con legumbres sin tratamiento térmico.
Yeah. Sin tratamiento técnico. The idea was to people to get accustomed to the transition, and we have no meat. It's all done with vegetables and different seeds, and well, it's very enticing, isn't it?
Al final, después de que está con el sol unos 2 o 3 horas, parece que es carne.
After we expose these about 2 to 3 hours in the sun, they look very much like meat.
Y también pasa lo mismo, pero en el laboratorio donde ya tenemos los campos muy fuertes, pasa lo mismo y más deprisa.
And this change is also produced in our laboratory, but in a very much faster way due to the fields we have there.
Y hemos preparado la comida como se hace tradicional, la sopa, el segundo y también el postre.
And we do the different settings on the table for the soup, the main plate, and then our sweet plate afterwards.
Y los que han participado también han aprendido una cosa que es muy importante.
And the people that come to these happenings have learned something which is very important.
Si el cuerpo no pide la comida, no tienes que introducir nada dentro.
That if your body doesn't ask for any food, you not necessarily have to eat any.
Porque muchos me han dicho que ellos no tienen hambre, pero comen.
Many of them have mentioned that they are not hungry, but they eat all the same. Pero ¿cómo? No necesitas comer, pero muchos comen igual.
No tenía hambre, John. No tienen hambre, pero comen porque la tele se dicen que tienes que comer.
Sí. Many of the people are not hungry, but they eat just because they're told they have to eat.
Y le he dicho que no es necesario porque le he explicado que la comida sin tratamiento térmico
And I've explained to them that this is not necessary because the food that's produced without any heat
tienen todo dentro, las enzimas, vitaminas, proteínas, integral.
have all the different components we need in them.
Y además utilizando el plasma, aquaplasma,
And also by using the plasma water,
aún es más completa.
it's very much more complete. Mercedes, la que está ahí, la primera, ¿no?
No, no, eso es en Rumanía, no es en Provence.
Ah, muy parecida.
Sí. Aquí fueron personas de todas las clases, digamos del campo y también profesores de universidad.
Here we had many different people from different origins, from the camp surroundings and from universities.
Y aquí en la misma terraza hemos empezado los reactores de CO2 y ZNO.
And here we could see we started producing Ganses with the reactors for CO2 and zinc oxide.
Y al final todos se llevaron las eprubetas con CO2 y ZNO.
And in the end, every one of them took some of these Ganses to their homes.
El Gans que se ha producido en 2 días fue bastante para todos y otras 20 personas.
And in 2 days, we produced enough Gans for all the people that came along and an additional 20 other people.
Y con esos 2 reactores hemos hecho para 40 personas y también está produciendo.
In these 2 days, we produced enough for the 40 people that came along, and they continue producing.
Después de estar afuera, le hemos movido en el laboratorio.
After having them outside, we put them back into the laboratory.
Y ahora en Eden, ese es el laboratorio.
And our lab right now here is in the place we call Eden.
Bueno, eso es el horno que le hemos llevado al sitio para que vean cómo se hace la bobina en el horno.
This is the heater we use in the dentistry, and we took it over to teach them how to do the different coils with the heat process.
Y hemos hecho nanocubrir la bobina en el horno.
We have done the nano coating in the ovens.
Hemos hecho un reactor de gas de CO2.
We have done a CO2 reactor.
Y le hemos mostrado que es mucho mejor y correcto hacer el nanocubrimiento en cáustico y no con fuego.
But we've told them that it's much better to do the caustic coating than the heat coating.
Cuando han preguntado si es correcto o no,
And when they've asked if this is correct or not,
le hemos mostrado por qué con las bobinas hechas en medio cáustico se hace un gas diferente.
we have shown them that when you use a caustic treated metals, we make a different type of GANs.
Explicándolo que es el método de la fundación.
We have told them that this is the method the foundation recommends.
Y que está comprobado por miles de personas.
And this is being tested by thousands of different people.
Y que en el medio cáustico el nano crecen.
And that in the caustic method, the nano grows in a better way.
Y para obtener un nano con fuego es muy difícil y además tiene que comprender qué es el nano.
And we have shown them that producing the coils in the heat method it's more difficult and in a slower way, and not as correct as the other Gans method.
Ok, eso es lo que hemos hecho y gracias por poder compartir con usted.
This is what I've done for quite a time, and thank you for having the patience to listen to me.
Thank you, Johnny.
Okay. Are there any questions for Gianni, or everybody clear on that? Lovely presentation. Nice work, Gianni.
I have a question. Can I be heard?
Yes, hi, Dean.
Peace.
Go ahead.
I have a kiln, and if I put the copper coils in there and turned it up to create a, what do you call it, nano coating, could I use that method to create a Gans? I never thought about it because I have it.
Yes, you can. Mr. Keshe also always says you got to experiment. It's a faster way of getting the nano coating on the copper, but it's not as strong as when you use the caustic method, and it's not as powerful either.
John, ¿puedes traducir?
Él pregunta que él tiene un horno también y que preguntaba si se puede usar este método, y yo le expliqué que sí, que se puede hacer, es más rápido, pero no es tan potente ni duradero.
Sí, eso quería decir. ¿Y por qué razón he hecho eso? Diga.
Sí, lo has hecho porque es más rápido para enseñar, ¿no es cierto?
No.
¿No?
Me contactan muchas personas que hacen nanocubrimiento con fuego y no les salen, no puede hacer el Gans.
Ah, sí, la intención tiene mucho que ver y no pasarse en el calor.
Sí, pero
Yeah.
¿puedes traducir, por favor?
Sí. He teaches the people the hot method also, so they learn, but the important thing is that the heat method is not as good and it doesn't last as long. And it's very critical for not to overheat the copper, really.
Aquí en Rumanía hay muchos que están partidos en dos. Uno que dicen que el cáustico es mejor y otros que dicen que el fuego es mejor.
There in Romania, some of the people think the heat method is better and others think the caustic method is better.
Y hay
If I'm going to use the heat method with a controlled heat source, what would be the best temperature that I could use according to your knowledge?
Well, I've used the heat method. It's very critical. The best thing is to watch your copper go into the silver color, and just when it starts to go into the different rainbow colors, stop heating it, because after this it immediately goes into the red hot critical point, and that you get rid of all the nano coating on when it goes on to red hot.
If I were going to control the temperature with a kiln, do you know what temperature I would be using?
¿Entendiste, Gianni?
Sí, y quería completar. En el horno yo he controlado la temperatura y está subiendo 7 grados por minuto.
Yeah, in his oven, he does this at controlling the temperature, and it goes up 7 degrees every minute. Y lograr los distintos colores, ¿no? ¿Tenés fotos de los distintos colores del metal?
Sí, pero tengo que
Buscarlo.
buscarlo, sí. Lo voy a mostrar, pero lo primero quería decir que he hecho varios experimentos con temperaturas más deprisa, digamos 15 grados por minuto, 10 grados, eso cuando he quedado con 7.
Yeah, he has tried different speeds in the heating, and he's convinced that the 7 degrees for every minute is about the best.
What
Y
color?
el horno,
He's going to show you now. He look for the pictures because he manages to get different colors out of the copper. It looks
Oh,
like
yes, I know.
platinum, silver, gold, different colors. It's incredible.
I'm an artist. I play with copper and fire.
Sí, acá nos dice que él es artista y él juega mucho con el cobre y el fuego.
pues maravilloso. Si pueden mostraros algunos logros, por favor.
Johnny says if you could show us some of your doings, and he'll look for his pictures.
Yes, I can, but not tonight.
Ah, sí, pero esta noche no los tiene a mano.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we have become friends on Facebook, so we can communicate. I live in different lives. One is an artist and one is a creator looking for how do we work with this Gans and the rest of the stuff.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and taking pictures also.
Oh my God, yes.
I used to do that 50 years ago. Yeah. Dean dice que se han hecho amigos en Facebook y van a comunicarse por ese método, por ese medio, y que él se dedica a fotografía y al arte y a otros menesteres.
Sí, lo sé, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Yanni. I have enjoyed your time with me and you have enriched me greatly. Thank you. Peace.
Gracias, Gianni, me has instruido mucho.
Yo también he aprendido mucho y gracias.
Yeah.
I imagine, Rick, you want to say, has anybody else got something to present?
Well, I'm just waiting for the conversation to wrap up or whatever it's going to transform into here. So no big rush. Yes, I guess it's time now, unless there's any other questions for Gianni. We have a hand up. That was Ursula. So I think she said what she needed to say.
Hi everybody.
Hi, Ursula.
I'm very happy to listen to Gianni when he speaks because it remembers me the months we passed here in the Oasis province with so much, not only theoric, but almost practical and concrete what we are learning here. How to eat, how to trade without heater and without with knowledge about what food can be as vibration. And it was today I apply very much of what I learned at this time, also with the Ganses and all what he was teaching to us. We have been 16 more or less, 10 Spanish and 6 Romanians, and with Adora, I know her personally. She stay here 1 week with the woman. And so I want to inform you that today I will meet a doctor. He is not far from here, La Drome, and he was my teacher in the first time of when I have been interested about food, about raw food. He is also a specialist. This will be very good for John in urinotherapy. I heard it at this time for the first time, and I will meet him today, this afternoon, and maybe we will start. He know anything about plasma. He received the information of my website, and he was very pleased to see this, because he was the person who initiated me without knowing it, because it was only from a book, to know how to cook quinoa and rice. Well, we cannot eat it also raw, but this time I was not aware from this. And then he is a doctor, you know. It's very important to have a doctor with you, because this was many years ago, from the beginning of the plasma teaching, that I wished a doctor, you know, who can certify, because the people need to have a doctor to say yes, it's good or it's not. So there are many of people are dependent for concerning what the meaning from other is. So I wish it a doctor close to me, and I have not only a doctor, but I have my soul father, because he opened the door to all these teachings with the food questions and raw food and so many others. I'm very emotional, because his wife is also shaman from Madagascar, so it's very beautiful how they are driving together and giving teachings in French. So this is the good point also, and so I am very happy to meet him this afternoon, and many things are coming as I wish it, even if sometimes we need to pass through situation what maybe could be felt as not very pleasant, but okay. Then he teaches also how to release stress. It's very, very interesting, because stress is all this energy you have inside, and it's like a volcano, and sometimes we cannot do it otherwise as being stressed, or get nervous, or have bad reactions, or anywhere. So he teaches how to do the tiger, you know. When the pressure is too much, like a cocotte minute, I don't know, a pressure pendle, you know, who release the whole heat, and we can do it the same. So I will be very happy today to initiate maybe this second oasis, and to people who don't know nothing about it, with plasma. But it's funny, because now we can show what happens all around the world, and it's no more a secret, and no more something you need to be in fear or ashamed, because so many this is now this, it's so many coming up with the ideas. Okay, but here is not more an idea. We are now studying. For me, even if at this first time I did understand no very much with this cola bottle, but okay, this is for engineers. But I felt many things, and I observed also so many knowledge seekers what they are producing and doing, and sometimes also a bit fighting. Anyway, we are thriving on this spaceship called Earth, and I feel that something beautiful will happening all around the world, thanks to you all, knowledge seekers and specialists here in this group, Plasma Reactor group. And I have been listening very much, but you know, when you start to teaching about coils and all these things, the beginning for me was okay. I did it also, but I have also had somebody behind me or close to me to show me, because I'm not very able to work with this. But the most important things, it's this the soul school. We are in the soul school. That's I have listened this the first time I've been in Rome. So from the mouth of Mr. Keshe, so wow, I'm in a good school here. And now I know that I have been always in the best school I ever found in my life. Because it's not only technique or medical or food or whatever, it's the feeling we have trading with others. Even if sometimes, there are connection, little bit like a tilt, and we need to make the tiger to release all this energy we have, almost man's, of course. But okay, we need to learn to live together. This is beautiful. Thank you.
I am present. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you,
Um,
Ursula. Go ahead,
Ursula,
Dean.
I cannot wait to meet you in person.
You're welcome. And maybe you will have some surprises, all of you, even Johnny.
Well, I had a surprise over 2.5 years ago, didn't I? Didn't we, Ursula, when you
Yes,
came over?
yes, surprise after surprise after surprise, and now we are together. We cannot do otherwise as learn with confidence, because we are living it. We are living the solutions. We are living the opening doors. We are living other people all around the world that are doing beautiful things, and so are we, learning from each other without criticism, without anger, because it's the anger what is making falling us down sometimes, and then we go ahead. But okay, all this, when I saw the first time all this fighting on Facebook, criticize, and my God, all this kind of misunderstanding, and giving so much sorrow, because it was not easy, even here in France, as you know, and everywhere. I know in Germany was the same, and in Portuguese was the same, and so many other languages who suffered of this misunderstanding of humans who are expected to live together, to laugh, to dance, and to sing together. This beautiful song we are singing with the plasma music, we have been talking so much about also the sounds and the music, and the birds now coming out of the cage. My God, but we need just do it, and becoming it, to integrate it, to irradiate it from your soul, from your heart, and to give away. There is a beautiful. It's not beautiful when you see it, but it's a very good movie on Netflix called Given. Given, I like this title. It was from our favorite actress, Meryl Streep. And so when she is somewhere, I watch always this movie, and I was very surprised. I invite you to have a look on it if you have Netflix, called Given. So enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you as well. It's pretty interesting journey that you're on there, Ursula, with the Oasis project, and we all wish you well on that, of course. And seems like you mentioned in the chat here, maybe you'll actually end up with a second Oasis. Is that what you're indicating? Meet a doctor, maybe a second Oasis?
Yeah, this is what she's described. That this doctor is coming along and she's going to have a different sort of oasis being created in the next few days.
I thought it might be a good place for the enhancement chamber, the egg, or what is the official name again? The
Health unit.
No, the Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit. Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit. It's a long one. But that was the full name that came out in the video that we saw earlier in the workshop that Flint played. Seems like an oasis. It seems like a natural to have a Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit hanging out there.
I think it's going to be the main. Yeah, I think it's going to be the main attraction wherever it lands.
Yeah, and lands might be the key word. If things go well, you can imagine if this did have a self-contained plasmatic power supply, which did enable it to have positive positioning and propulsion, that why not the perfect application to initially begin with would be like, it would be like a Red Cross ambulance, basically, and able to go anywhere in the world within minutes. And, if there's someone in need, you'd have a fleet of these, thousands of them, that could go anywhere they're needed. There's a disaster in, the Philippines or whatever. You send the fleet there to handle the issues, and
that's what I was just thinking. A fleet. I thought of 1,000 too.
Mm-hmm.
They just land there.
And you can think in terms of medical situations and various accidents and that sort of thing, to relieve the suffering, basically. And that should be, to me, that makes sense as one of the first applications for those kind of emergency situations. And often in those situations, they're in remote places that some of the current technology might be limited, not able to operate properly. You need something with positive positioning. Maybe a helicopter won't work because the gusts are too strong, or there's other environmental problems that it doesn't enable rotating propellers and all that kind of thing. And positive positioning would have a definite position in that situation, and that could enable it to be accepted all over the world as well.
Didn't Mr. Keshe say that unit will fly or can fly?
Well, this is like the next stage 3 or whatever, depending on how many stages. But the first stage is to make it as a body enhancement unit, that's situated in certain places. And the next stage will be to make it self-sufficient, so it has its own power supply. And once that power supply gets revealed, well, that's the key to the whole flight system. So the next stage after that would be the ability to have such a unit fly. And that's what Mr. Keshe is implying could be done by March of the coming year in Iran. And before that, I think it was in Mexico, is when the power supply aspect is to be revealed. So we shall see.
Right. And if the governments work together, he said 6 months of craft on the moon, and in a year, man on the moon within 12 months.
Well, if you can make this universal body enhancement spaceship unit fly and have positive positioning, it's not much of a stretch to imagine that with as a completely sealed unit ready to go to space that can have its own protective environment and its own positioning, and away it goes. Certainly
Sure.
looks like it could do that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely, it looks like a cockpit of an airplane, and look at the egg shape. It's just,
Yeah.
and these are the drawings people had centuries ago
Mm.
in the skies.
Right.
Round, egg-shaped, spherical.
Yes, right. I've come up with a picture of that, actually. That's the liaison into the next phase here that I wanted to present. So thank you for that. And let me show the, I think we have to optimize it.
Although Mr. Keshe, in one of his first teachings, he says it's easier to control a half spherical shape.
Yeah, and but we're not talking about a sphere here necessarily. This is an egg, which is a different different situation somewhat.
Well, you
And,
got those bell-shaped ships also, which would be about
yeah,
a half an egg.
right, half an egg on the half shell, as they say. So this is your typical egg. I was doing some experimenting. This is actually a 3-dimensional egg, so I can move it around, or I could give it a kick and have it rotate. You can see that an egg shape, contrary to a sphere, an egg shape has a pulse to it when it rotates. It's a sphere, you won't get that pulse, right? And it'll have a pulse whether you rotate it this way, which the top and bottom are both in a sort of making a circle.
Any of its 3 axes, yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Because one end's pointier than the other?
Just because it has 2 points. It has, in a way, you could say it has a polarity, or it's got an offset to it. And if you think about it, anything that rotates with that offset, when it's in this position, it looks like a perfect circle. But in this position, it's got an imbalance to it. And if you think of the fields coming off of this, it's going to have different variation in the fields according to its, you can see it going in and out. You can imagine if it was a planet going in and out like that, that it would have gravity extremes like pushing and pulling anything that would be coming close to it, let's say.
Almost like a heartbeat?
Yeah. So
Well,
as soon as it starts spinning, let me see if I can get it at about a heartbeat sort of run here.
well, Victor
There's
Schauberger
about a heartbeat.
Victor Schauberger discovered that the egg shape, which is not symmetrical, like the egg of a chicken, it keeps the liquid inside continually rotating within itself in a torus way.
Torus, exactly. That's the key word, John. You're doing good here. The key word into the next thing I wanted to show here. But first, I wanted to have a look at this because I wanted to get into a little bit of math here as well. And it turns out the formula for this egg shape, which has the same shape at each end, it doesn't have the bigger end and smaller end like you're talking about with like a chicken egg. We could do that with formulas, but I wanted to keep it simple here. And it's basically, if you look at the X, Y, and Z as the X, Y, and Z axis in this egg, in fact, I think there's actually an axis that we can draw there, say. And if you look at the X, Y, and Z axis, and then the formula is 2x squared plus 2y squared plus z squared or z squared equals 1. And so go ahead.
I was going to say it was a x squared plus a y squared plus z or z squared.
Well,
not necessarily has to be 2. It can be any constant.
Well, I could put an n in there actually. Whoops, I didn't want to do it that way. Nx squared and n y squared. Let's come on, do it. Ny squared, and that pops up an n down here that I can vary from, say in this case, 0 to 10. And you can see the influence. We take it back to 2 where it was. Well, there's 2.1. And the higher that number goes, is the more squashed the
elongated
unit gets. Yes. So once it's up to 10, you have a cigar shape, you could say. So this is very important. I'm glad you brought that up because this is part of the, what is it,
a flying cucumber.
This is part 10 or 11 of the 10-part process that I want to show about the torus. So let's go from egg, and as you mentioned, the egg having a special shape that enables it to have a circulation inside. Like when it sits up this way, it looks very much like an ancient vase. And some of the ancient vases, or most of them, are designed in such a way to have that circulation that you're talking about there. The circulation is good for water because it keeps it fresh, and it keeps it cool, because part of this process inside, if this was a ceramic or a clay type vessel, it actually has a shape and a circulation that will tend to cool the water and keep it fresh. Or if it happened to be milk or some other substance that might tend to go sour, then it would help to retain that refrigeration and freshness to it. So basically, isn't that what going back to the egg or into the egg is all about, is getting refreshed and acknowledging that almost perfect shaped space that the initial cells and the initial life for many of our life forms, such as chickens in particular, but lots of life forms are in the egg shape when they are born. So it's very interesting concept of the egg. And then you just mentioned the toroid inside the egg. So if we kind of combine those ideas, so I'd like to move into the toroid here. First, I'll just show my video briefly. stop the screen share briefly. So there we go, get it lined up in live stream there. We were talking a couple of last couple of plasma groups about the toroid and showing all the cool things that the toroid could do, and about the how it can trap these particles inside this middle basically, if you look at it, it's like an egg shape in there. That central core, the way it comes around. If I remove those units from the central core, just let them sit for a bit here. And we talked about that central core and how we can alter it. We can make it bigger and smaller according to variation of the pressure on the rest of the unit. And also the ability of this to be able to accommodate itself. I don't think I did that right. Yeah, that worked, sort of. To accommodate itself to various anything that's round can fit inside this, basically. Anything from a small piece of wood, that's actually a square piece of wood, right through to something like this quite thick tube, and the toroid barely even fits around it, but yet it accommodates and works just as well. Moving along, it's quite happy whether it's a square piece of wood or a tube of slippery plastic. It accommodates. And if you look at it, it's got that inner part, that inner core is now gripping around the tube, and the outer core forms sort of a circle or a sphere around it. So that's very interesting, because the that inner part, I mean, this, when you look at it, that's the toroid collapsed. It's very much like a ring magnet, like this. This is a ring magnet, and toroid ring magnet. And when this is expanded out, it's basically the same sort of thing. And Mr. Keshe has explained about the ring magnets and how they interact with each other, and in particular on their edges. I don't know if this will work properly. Let's have a quick look and see if it does. Oops. Maybe I'll put the small one down here. Let's see if this interacts with it. Oh, there it goes. Right off the table. So he was saying that, yes, you can get magnets to interact this way, and they will sort of push around and all that kind of thing. That's quite commonly known. Then in the kids' workshop, he took the magnet, the ring magnet, put it on its edge, and then was influencing it, and you can actually influence it from quite a bit further away with the other magnet. So when you think about it, that's what this toroid is. It's the same as a ring magnet. So it's hard to imagine this shape in this, but when you look at it, if we were to look at the field lines of the magnet, for example, see, I think I had something lined up about that. Yeah, here we go. Just a second, I'll get the picture lined up. This will be about toroids. And time, there we go. We share. I'll stop the video for now and share. Okay, so this is a Wikipedia about a toroid, which is a surface of revolution with a hole in the middle, like a donut, forming a solid body. So basically, we know what that looks like, that torus, standard kind of torus picture that you might see here. And they go on to give a formula for it and whatnot for the volume and surface. And then there's a link to toroidal inductors and transformers. I thought, oh, I just found this, so I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I kind of looked through there, and they talk about all the toroidal aspects. And then they get into some pretty cool pictures of coils. I thought, that's looks very much like our maggrav coil. You even have the wires twisted together in a way. And it gets into these different pictures and talks about the magnetic field, the B field it's called. Sometimes preferred to call the H field, but it's the lines of magnetic flux and how it's internally confined within this toroidal winding. And it shows the current going around this inductor, or this coil, very much similar to the maggrav coils. And they show some variations of that with a wire inside of the coil, which is, again, what the maggrav actually uses. And this, in this case, a coil with a return winding going in the opposite direction. And there's another picture here of a similar circumstance. And then it shows an interesting thing about how the electric field that's produced by a plus and minus 100-volt through the wires here. And it's actually interesting how it goes plus on one side and goes up to 0 or down to 0, you could say, depending if it's which way you're going at the top, and then into the minus on this side. So it produces a big gradient in the electric field through this coil arrangement. Same thing through this different coil arrangement. It's just a different type of gradient. Sometimes they want to cancel out the gradient. Sometimes you want to increase the gradient. We talk about the magnetic vector potential, which is the way the magnetic field goes here. And now this is the interesting part, I think, which it gets into this drawing, which we've seen before of magnetic fields. But it's this toroid in the middle, and that's the same as the maggrav coil setup. And this is the fields going out, and in the bottom, the fields going in. So you have a inner inlet and outlet on this structure, very much like the toroid toy that I'm playing with, that showing. And we've talked about that before. There's another picture of the same kind of idea. Okay, so that's kind of more or less common knowledge to those who work with these toroidal circuits, which are actually quite common now. There's a picture, I think, of these little guys with a ferrite core. That's an iron core with the copper wires wrapped around it. And it has special And this is a larger one hooked up to the main current, main wires. So these coils have special purposes. Okay, well, that's all fine and dandy. And so a few days ago, I was sent this message in the community.keshefoundation.org site where I post the Keshe Plasma Reactor group of last week. And it's from Ed Lang, and he says, here's a simple animation of the wire torus. And it's called the wireframe torus. So I wanted to show that. It's a YouTube video, very short, but interesting, and it inspired me. So I'll just get that set up here. Okay. Okay, you should be able to see that now, which is, it's under, I think it's his name, but it's under Ed Joe, a different name, is a YouTube channel. Keshe Foundation animation of 2019-10-09, teaching for Reactor group. So this is, he was inspired by looking at the toroid that I was playing with and made this computer animation graphic here. So it's 16 seconds and I'm going to play it through. Here we go. Okay, so there's a lot going on there, and I want to just I'll play it again first, and it's actually very interesting. It's a lead into me. It's for some other stuff about the torus I wanted to show. So I'll play it again. Then I'm going to play it in slow motion. So here we go for the. Okay, now let me try it in slow motion, and we'll have a little more of a step-by-step look at it. So it's interesting to me that it started out with this big sort of flash. I thought, what the heck's this? And it was hard to figure out what this is about. And it's a little bit almost crude in a way, and the animation has sharp edges. It doesn't have a certain smoothness to the way it was cut from the animation, or the way it was duplicated, but rendered, I guess is the word. But I found it quite fascinating. So I'll play it again in slow motion this time. See rotations going on here. And then we have the thing of the ball going into the center and kind of being all turned out and then spit out the other end. It's kind of interesting. Sort of like the way the ping pong ball goes in and can come out. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Once I played it a few times, I could understand better what was going on. And then I thought, well, geez, I've got this program that I've been using, the one that I showed with that showed the egg there, called a graphing calculator for the Mac. And I had that toroid at a few years ago that I was playing around. So I, excuse me, got that out and decided to do a little work with that. So let me show that. Okay, you should be able to see that now. This is in graphing calculator, and this is a torus. It's kind of a standard torus model that they give you to work with. Now it's, I can manipulate it. I can twist it, turn it, spin it, and other than repositioning from its central place there, I can sort of play with it in 3 dimensions. Okay, that's interesting. You can see it's got a standard torus shape with the hole in the middle, like a donut. Sort of a hollow donut in this case, but some of them are pretty hollow anyway. But it's got this central hole in the middle. And I was thinking, okay, well, that's interesting. But how can I make this so it has that that core, that egg in the middle that I've shown with the coil that I have? So that became the challenge. So I started manipulating some of the numbers here, and I'll show you what I started to come up with. And let's see, where is it here? Bear with me a second here while I find the right. Okay, here we go. Just trying to get there. It's a little hard to manage. There. Okay, now I'll get that lined up. Okay, now you should be able to see that one. So this is the same basic shape and the same basic formula as the previous torus. Only this one has a variation that's been added to it, so that I can actually alter some of the numerals here. I put an n as a variable, and I can vary the variable. So it's what we can do now. So right now it looks like this. And if you look at it, it looks very much like the maggrav coil, a regular windings of the coil that we make as in the maggrav systems. All right, so we alter the N, and I can expand and contract that coil arrangement. And when I contract it down, let's make it bigger. Contract it down more and more and more. As you can see, you end up with a toroid with the in and out being shown, where it comes to a center point in the middle there. Okay. And if I take it further, whoops, slow down there. Set that up again. If I take the n variable further, then it actually produces that egg shape in the middle. Not quite egg, it's a pointy egg, let's say. Just exactly the way it can be done with the toy torus that I showed. So I thought, oh, that's really cool. Wow. And it's a relatively smooth animation. I can take it now and play with it, spin it, turn it around. And I thought, oh, that's really neat, because this shows that the same formula is involved, and there's only a couple of very simple variables that change a donut like this into something that has that inner protective core, in a way, reactor, that inner protective environment. See how tight the field lines are in that inner core. It's like if it was bars on a prison or a jail cell, well, you could escape easily on the outside bars because they're quite far apart. But those inner bars would contain whatever's inside there, in the way they contain the ping pong ball. And I've shown that with the live version of this. Or you can put as many as, I think I counted 13 ping pong balls that I could put into the center simply by expanding it in the way that this does. Now it's really interesting. You see how that expansion can take place. We go from donut to touching on the inside to going beyond touching and inside each other. Now, if we take this further and go all the way so that at end, that n variable becomes 0, that inner core becomes the outer core. That two become one. Now we have a perfect sphere with two field lines, one kind of going in one direction and one in the other direction, you could say. And it's like a ball. I thought, wow, that's amazing. And it's simply, you look at this formula, there's the n appears just in one position here. And that factor is just entered into the variable. It's just n equals 0, makes it a sphere. And if it's n equals, say, 2, then it ends up being like a maggraph coil. But it's all the same basic shape. And you can actually see the transformations occur in a very gradual, step-by-step thing. It goes inside out, and then bingo, you've got an entirely different structure. And I thought, wow, that's all pretty amazing. I thought this was all so simple, just from one little variable. How could this be that something changes from a donut to a sphere and a toroid in between? It seems impossible. So then I thought, well, that's pretty neat. And I thought, well, let me put this on automatic and see what it looks like. And I think it's pretty spectacular, actually. It goes sort of inside out and transforms itself. And I find it mesmerizing. It's a very beautiful transformation. Similar to many flower structures or other entities. These are basically the way magnetic fields operate. And if you look at it sideways version, so in a way, it's like a heartbeat for this configuration. It's in one dimension, it looks like one thing. In another dimension, it looks like another thing, but it's all the same thing in a way. That made me realize that the maggrav coils are like a toroid, and the toroid is like a sphere in another way, and it's all kind of linked together in this beautiful structure. Okay, so I think you follow me so far there. Any questions so far? I'm going to move to the next step. So if we look at that, the egg shape in the center, for example, as a entity, and you can imagine maybe if it was in this configuration, that could almost be the egg-shaped chamber there. Maybe the fields interact in a similar way as what we see here. And perhaps we can make the fields more expanded or more contracted, depending on what needs to happen inside that space. And speaking of space, then I thought, geez, this is a beautiful structure. What else can I do with it? And I thought, well, let's play with some of the other variables. So, you see, I've got a, where is it here? Oh, that's not it. Okay, bear with me a minute here. There we go. Okay, I've got another one to show that I made some alterations to the is that the right one? Yeah. Okay, so this is another just get it set up. Bear with me. This is another example of the same thing with a couple of the variables changed. I changed the variable on the bottom to make it 10. And what I discovered was that when I changed the variable, I could change the shape of this thing. So, for example, instead of 10, I put a N in there. I can change that toroid from, let me just give it more range here. Say 10. Okay, I'll try that again. So here's the toroid as a sort of a normal looking when n is around 2 and being that bottom variable in this formula. When I make it bigger, there's 3 and n equals 4 and then 5 and then 6, and I'm thinking by this time, oh, we're really getting somewhere here. This is really cool. And I'm thinking, I'm going to create a saucer. And so I took it up to 10. Turn the dial up to 10, and basically what you have at that point is a saucer type configuration in a way. And we can make that kind of rotate. And that's a bit fast. Let's try to get a little rotation. There we go. So now it becomes like a saucer shape, all from that same basic, easy formula, very relatively simple axis type formula. And now we've created a spaceship from that configuration. So I'm thinking, wow, this might be quite useful to learn how to alter the fields in order to create such a shape. And of course, we still have that inner core, that inner protective core as the, the core of the spaceship, you could say. And then the outer part being the other protective field or propulsion field or positioning field, or just because you have to have a proper spaceship shape to your magnetic fields. It's part of the laws of the universe as far as I'm concerned. Let me see if I take it up even further from 10 to maybe 50. I wonder what will happen. Interesting. So that's about it. That's my spaceship revelation on the toroid. What do you think? Okay, no comments. Okay, so that's it for that anyway. Oh, I see Jedi's got a bunch of comments in here. Holy cow, I didn't see the chat. Of course, he's got all the math figured out there. Very good. Thank you, Jedi. I won't put all of your comments in the other chats here. I think it would overwhelm people, but it's special for those who are in the Zoom. Maybe I can actually try them. Okay, let's see if that works. The fat egg, for example. Try a new one. And let me show it. Brand new white screen. Oh, I'm not sure if it'll copy. Let's see. It's not allowing me. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, it's not allowing me to paste for some reason. So I'm having some difficulty with that. Try it up in the other area. Not allowing me to copy from the chat, I guess is what it is. Maybe I can type in directly.
Ask to Rick how it's made when it's copy the chat Zoom.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll translate properly. Give it a try. The basic ovoid, I believe. It's just our, there we go. I think that's what Jedi was trying to show. And if I make it different. Okay, I have to leave it that way. So that's on a two-dimensional basis. Anyway, it's a bit hard to work with it, just plunking in the numbers that way. But yeah, you can change the variables in the same manner in order to make different egg shapes as you wish. So in any case, I'm thankful to Just get the name back up again here. Oops. I lost my place here. But anyways, it's under Ed Joe as far as the YouTube channel goes, and that was the source of inspiration for this little journey into the toroid here. Some interesting things, I believe, for those that are so inclined and are in need of formulas, and not just formulas, but you can actually play with the end result of the formulas, which is nice to see, have that feedback of what it actually looks like and be able to make little alterations. So that's graphing calculator for those with the Mac. I'm sure there's a equivalent for Windows as well. I've shown other things. There's lots of examples of various surfaces and so on and so forth. Everything from heart shapes to shell shapes and whatnot. Make some really beautiful things when using equations for the creation of these objects. I think it's quite fascinating. I love the black background and fluorescent type colors, and you get to play with things like that. Turn it around, and if you want, you can even take a journey inside. So as we go in and in and in and in, further and further into this structure, at a pretty high magnification at this point. But it just keeps going and going because it's actually basically an eternal structure, although it seems like we've encountered a black hole of some sort here in the final analysis. That's interesting. I never noticed that before. As I keep magnifying, we've gone into a black hole situation. Interesting. Okay, back out of that one. Some of these structures can be fractal, so even though you keep going further and further and further in, you never really change the structure. It still keeps its same structure. Oops, I went too far. You get the idea. Anyway, Anybody else have anything they would like to present? Any questions, comments, or otherwise?
Hi, good morning. This is Lawrence.
Hi, Lawrence.
I thought we should go back to this nanocoating topic you brought up earlier. I've been thinking a lot about this potassium and argon relationship, and I think I figured out that the potassium, argon, and the calcium, the three together, for the basis of the first star formation that we created when we were working with all these tools. So basically, the potassium, argon, and carbon, I mean the calcium, are the basis for the creation of a free plasma environment. And the potassium and the argon, they feed each other. The potassium releases energy, however it does it. The argon gets charged with it. And once the argon releases its energies, it charges back to the potassium. And somehow the calcium is also involved in form of a buffer or something like this. It's the same setup as we have with the Kochen, as we've been told in the star formation setup. And I think it's this connection to the free plasma, the universal fields, that's built into the interaction of these materials that then initiates the process. It's not the ultraviolet light, because or the gamma ray. That is only a small part of the interaction between the argon and the potassium. It's this whole setup as a star formation with the free plasma inside, or the free plasma that's open to become accessible, that then creates the interactions with the other tools. And I think
I think we're going to need either a drawing or something. It's hard to follow you. There's a lot of background noise and you're sort of muffled. And to try to follow what you're saying and to make sense of it is difficult. So we're going to need like a drawing or something that we can focus on, that we know what you're saying, so we can maybe have it. There's a lot of background noise as well.
I'm trying to hold on to the microphone so that it's not so bad. Maybe like this. No, unfortunately, I'm traveling and I'm in a spot I just wanted to share because I've been up all night thinking about this thing, and I thought it's important.
Okay, good. Well, let's go through it step by step again for us, so that we can try to understand, follow along with you.
You remember the first video we had about the star formation, where these bluish spheres and reddish spheres around the bluish spheres were charging each other? The very first star formation video, this CGI graphic. And just
I'm not sure which one. There's a number of those first ones. I'm not sure where I'd find that.
Well,
Anyway,
the thing is, just consider that we have a star formation, and at the bottom of the star formation, we have, instead of the carbon, the nitrogen, and the oxygen, as we now know with the biology Ganses, we have the potassium, the argon, and the calcium. All these isotopes that we've been talking about last week, the potassium 40, the argon, and the calcium. And I think this is why Mr. Keshe explained that we have these the salts as a connector to the universal fields, is because through the interaction of these materials, especially the argon, the potassium feeding the argon, And I think then the argon getting charged and then releasing an electron and feeding the next potassium or the same potassium, we're creating a star formation setup with free plasma opening up by these interactions. And it's this initial seed that then creates all the other cascading effects that we see, for example, as nanocoating. So whenever we use fire, we most probably, or I think maybe we create some kind of opening of free plasma, but through the star formation setup, we know that we create the conditions for the free plasma. And if we put all this, for example, into a tube, because if you consider any wire with how it's created, first they take a sheet of metal, they cut it into pieces, and they coil the sheet of metal onto itself, creating a small tube. And then they pull it through different small holes. So any wire that we've been using has the shape of a tube built in when it's been created by means of how the material is processed. So when we have this tube of copper around and we put the potassium and the other things for the nanocoating inside, for example, into the tube, we are creating that we're creating an anode and a cathode. Just that the free plasma is, say, the center pin, and the copper in the outer side is the other terminal. And so basically, through your screen is visible, Rick. So basically, through the interaction of the free plasma with the matter, we create a gradient of stronger feeds the weaker. And even around the star formation of the potassium, the argon, and calcium, we already have those universal fields or cosmic fields, as explained last teaching, which we have also on the nanocoating. Because as soon as this process starts and we have the free plasma inside, those materials, the potassium, argon, and calcium, are already in the Gans state. So they start feeding the weaker, the material state, and then the copper, because the two stable isotopes are also a deuterium apart, 63 and 65, which is 2. The copper opens up, and then there is also a free plasma in the nanocoating. And I think the energy of all these units in the systems comes from those, say, cosmic fields, or the free plasma, which is in between those matter elements. And if we have those elements around 40, those and the free plasma inside, they will feed the elements around 60, which is around the copper and the iron and the zinc. So once we have that nano coating, we have this capacitor and the superconductive environment. And since charges try to separate and try to get away from each other, if you have an interaction in the center that creates a lot of electrons now talking into the matter state because of the argon getting charged and then releasing electrons and then creating this Townsend discharge effect, the nano coating will capture those charges and those fields and interact with them. And once the nano coating can't hold any more fields, then we will see the fields outside. So it's basically just the copper that we need and the caustic environment with the potassium inside. All the other effects are a result of those interactions. Are you following me in any shape or form? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now clearly, so that's good. It's just following can be a challenge. I get the idea. I like the idea of the nano-coated environment with the caustic, and all that does make sense. Something that's been
Whatever you
considered
take with you
us.
is that there is a free plasma created by the potassium and argon and calcium. And that free plasma is what's being converted to matter or to any other kind of interaction. It's the star formation that we are using from the beginning. And that first star formation in interaction with the copper and its surrounding creates the plasmatic gradient that then opens up the copper. And in the copper, we will then also have constantly free plasmas in between the material. And it's feeding from the inside. It's basically through the deuterium difference of the salts, of the potassium, argon, and calcium. There's a deuterium difference. That deuterium difference of field strengths feeds the deuterium difference in between the copper isotopes. And that leads to the opening up of the plasma in between the matters. And it's always feeding from the inside. Basically, the initial AC is the charging from the potassium to the argon, and the argon charging the potassium back. That's an AC. That's two capacitors next to each other that constantly feed the other or charge the other. The potassium releases the gamma ray. The argon gets charged through the light of that gamma ray and then releases an electron. And that electron then gets captured by the potassium. And I think the calcium is there for balancing purposes. And like this charging back and forth is the same as someone advised us to have this nostril breathing, like you breathe through one nostril and through the other nostril, because then you can do this charging in and forth between the two hemispheres of the brain. So, and I think it's the same charging that happens from the soul of the body to the soul of the human soul. It's also this kind of two-in-one setup that is balanced. But well, it's the technical point that we need to first understand, because that's how the teaching got set up. And I wanted to follow up to last week's teachings. Thanks for listening. Please ask questions if you're free.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lawrence. And anybody have a pertinent question for Lawrence that will take it a little further, or explain? Maybe you can explain some part of what he said. Now's your big opportunity. He's hot. Strike while the iron is hot. wish we had a practical experiment going on to demonstrate your ideas there. So
Well,
then it'd be easier for all of us to follow along then, perhaps.
you could also think of those two fields or these two elements, just like you demonstrated with the torus. And if you consider the torus, if you draw it, if you wanted to draw it, you have one circle, and then on the edge of that circle, you pull another circle around. Isn't that the
Sort of,
donut shape?
like an onion skin, you mean? Or?
Yeah, if you draw one circle from the center point out, and then on the edge where you have drawn the circle, you position your drawing device, turn it 90 degrees, and then you draw a circle continuously around. Then you get this donut. So basically, you draw a circle at one point, and then you pull that device or the circle around on the edge of the first circle that you've drawn.
Not completely clear on that one. I haven't. Let's see. I think it's this one. Yeah, here. Maybe this is an example that will make sense, or this might be what you're talking about. This is what I'm thinking you're talking about, but I might be completely off. In any case, we'll have a look at it. I like it. I call it worlds within worlds.
I think I shouldn't be talking too much about this. Just remember or take with you that the potassium, argon, and calcium are the basis of another star formation. And it's the first time we've been opening what we're calling a free plasma. That's the whole point I wanted to make. And all the interactions are stemming from it. That's the initial seed. And it's the same interaction in our bodies that creates all the effects that we're experiencing, I think.
Well, it's also the what they found in the Sapphire project, which is the reactor that they put a bunch of money into creating with hydrogen. It's a hydrogen reactor, basically, with an electrode in the center, like a ball electrode. And it's just one of the things they discover is that it is creating new elements that aren't in there. They're starting out with a very clean environment with only certain metals and hydrogen, but they create this plasma environment that they discovered is actually transmutating and creating elements. So turns out that calcium is one of the elements they've noticed, and what's the other ones? I think potassium was one of the other ones, and titanium, strangely enough. Aluminum was another, and these are created by processes like you're talking about, basically. These isotopes are able to transform in certain conditions, and bingo, we've got a different element at that point. So this is actually really big news, because it indicates that if that process can be controlled on the nano level, then you can essentially create any element you wish. So they've already created a couple of dozen elements that have formed. And they've also noticed, they made the correlation that It's the same elements that form in space, in the so-called galactic clouds and the dust clouds in space. And they are now formulating, the reason they did this whole Sapphire Project reactor was to try to recreate the conditions of what happens on this in the sun. And they wanted to create the sun on Earth, basically. And the thing about it is, now they're saying is the elements that we see in the sun did not come from other galactic places and other cosmos of bigger suns and bigger reactions that took place, but actually within our own sun, because of the electric nature of it, makes it so that these elements can actually be created. And it's not really a fusion reaction with the hydrogen to helium the way that we've been believing as scientists and humans for many, many decades, actually about 100 years, of this theory of the sun being a big nuclear reactor. And,
Rick,
yes.
when was that?
When was which?
When they find that?
In the Sapphire Project, just in the last announcement a few days ago, they put out another video, and they announced that as one of their findings. But they did announce it last year as well, as sort of they had to figure out, what's this substance is doing in the middle of our electrode. It's a little ball of something. They had to analyze it. And they had these other balls. And where are all these? Where are they coming from? We don't have this anywhere in our reactor.
Okay. Funny enough, if you go to the 68th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, and what wasn't that what was Blueprint, and you go also in that period of time to the private teaching, it's funny enough that Alex and Mr. Keshe in that period of time speak about that and teach exactly what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. And now the thing about it is the mainstream starting to pick up on this and go with it, with this new what they call electric universe theory. And that was what was the basis. And this electric universe theory is much more related to a plasmatic universe, the way they look at things, and they can explain things without having to talk about dark matter and gravity doing all the work, because it's not gravity doing all the work. There's
Yeah, they
forces,
yeah
like
they
Mr.
can
Keshe explains.
they can choose what names they put in.
Well, it's more of a different concept of the way things operate, and it's a much simpler and easier way to approach it that actually works, as opposed to all the complicated theories and everything works except for 80%, which we have to call that dark matter and dark energy because we don't know what it is and we don't know how to measure it. They kind of just, all of our theories are perfect except for this 80%, which is most of it. And it starts to put doubt into the rest of it, which rightfully should be there, but it hasn't been there for the last 100 years or so.
Yeah. Sorry, Rick. I jumped in without saying hello, everyone. So,
Jumping Jello.
yeah,
Yes, hello. What's on your mind today?
I am working my dear.
Mm.
I leave it for you and the knowledge seekers.
All right. What about it, knowledge seekers? What do we have to say?
But if you bring the nano coating processing, it is interesting to understand it more. And if you really go to the 68th knowledge seekers workshops, you'll find there is another process of nano coating which Alex brought up and how he's doing. And you find also the explanation of Mr. Cash. What is in that? The process of nano coating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of things can be, lots of really deep processes can occur during that nano coating. It's not just, it can be very similar to the processes occurring inside of a plasma chamber at high voltage and high energy levels and all this kind of thing. It can all happen on the nano level and in between the Ganses and so on, that interactions that are very hard to notate, as scientists don't have the apparatus to even measure because they're just starting to get into the nanotechnology area, even though it's the fastest growing part of science and physics and so on right now. It's still very much unknown. They don't have the tools to measure what's going on. They're getting better and better at the precision and smaller stuff they're able to take pictures of and take experiments of, and individual molecules and atoms and so on. And eventually they will get to a better place with it. But the idea being that I think we're on a cusp as humanity of really discovering and being able to work with the transmutation of elements, which of course in its ultimate which could occur very quickly, will mean we don't have to go out looking for elements, gold, silver, iron, all the different metals that will no longer have to be mined. If we can create all of our own materials right literally from the fields, then a lot of activities are going to look really not cost effective, let's say. Why go out and hire all these people to run around the world looking for these rare earth minerals or materials and elements and so on, and having everybody investing and trying to control it with their weapons and so on and so forth, because it's a certain kind of power, a certain amount of control you can have with controlling the market. Look at the conflicts between the US and China with the market in rare earth metals right now. China basically has the market cornered, and US blew it by not investing in the rare earth metals. And it's a bit of a conflict. But if we were able to create our own rare earth metals, then that whole process, that conflict, and everything that feeds that the war machines, usually over energy of some sort, oil, metals, minerals, that sort of thing, water. But what if we can create our own water? What if we can create our own materials to any amount you want? Really like gold? No problem. We can make gold or we can make water. It's the same thing, costs as much. How much would you like? Don't take too much gold with you if you're going to have a lot of water, because you're going to sink. That's what happens to the greedy ones that try to cross the river when they had too much gold in their back in the early days of early days when they were discovering gold. There's actually stories in Canada of that happening, of people that had too much gold in their canoe and they get in a bit of a storm and the canoe goes over, and since they had all their gold on their body to make sure it wasn't stolen, and they didn't want to get rid of the gold, they went down with it because gold's very heavy.
Marcy, you are reading my mind.
So, okay, I think it's enough of this particular entity. Go inside of it. Okay, so anybody else have anything they would like to show for today's show and tell?
Only the difference. Hi, I'm done. Only the difference. The same Gans, the same plasma water, crystal shape, in different moments, in different years.
You're saying would it be the same Gans if it was made in different years, or it's going to be different under different conditions?
No, the picture, different environment, different moment of. I have a Gans from 2016 when I make him first my graph. Is the same Gans. I don't know, 1 year ago or 2 years ago, crystal shape, and the same Gans few weeks ago.
What do you mean it's the same?
It's the same in the same bottle jar. It's the same, but it's I look in the manifestation, different manifestation, making shape of this crystal. When Jalal saying with acidic or with base hydroxide. If you allowed, I show the picture.
Okay.
The same gas, but different manifestation. I share it from next for person. I opening this picture. Picture. Photo. No. Different picture. It's better for stop sharing. I searching for.
You should get your picture up first and then share it instead of sharing all your pictures.
In this manner is better. Photo. Okay. It's how it's manifested. Is not washing. It's for seeing the difference. I'm muting also because I have a lot of noise here. Give me 5 minutes.
Okay. Anybody else have something they'd like to bring up? Any questions or comments? revelations, videos of your flying saucer going out the door of your shop. One of these days, someone's going to take me up on that.
And back.
Hello, yes.
Okay, I started with structure of crystal. In here, I have a copper oxide or yes, copper oxide. It's in room temperature, closer to my magrav. Perhaps it's like insula, island making formation of this. It's not compact everywhere. It's in CH3 collected from top. It's a mix of, I think it's CH3, but it's making with zinc, with copper, with iron. It's different structure.
Did you take the amino acids off the top and then mix them and they went to the bottom? Is that what you mean with the top?
It's separate. In certain time it's separate, it's settled down, and the other it's rising in the top. Gans also, I think, with amino acid. And I collected in different jar. And I leave it in the room, and it's growing this crystal. It's not so important why it's growing, it's how it's growing in different moment of the last years. You know, because I'm showing the difference. It's like this is like a crystal of outside mountain crystal, quartz shape. Perhaps it's.
So was this in a caustic environment? Or acidic or something?
It's
we don't usually see crystals like that, so how do you think they form?
First, I think it's the salt from the salt water, but it's.
Was there a lot of salt, like
no, normally 10%,
15%? Yeah,
10%. But
then
I
did
remember
the water evaporate, which would make it more like 20?
No, it's not. This is growing in the water, in the plasma water.
But I mean, if the water goes down halfway, then that means you have twice as much salt concentration. So it goes from 10% to 20%.
I know. I saw it how it's grow. It's a shape of quadrat shape crystalline. It's not from the salt. It's a different different manifestation. Also in the hydroxide is forming the other shape of crystals. It's not in this manner.
Okay.
Because this is in what year ago? 16, 4 or yes, 4 years. No, 4. It's too much.
Probably
3 years ago.
3 or 3.5. Yeah.
3 years ago. And I show you. You see also here it's in the summertime. I put in top. No, in top, in the bottom, CO2. Here I have one coil with copper coil, normally with shellac, or what is an isolator of copper in the coil, in the normal email, I think. Or how
Enamel.
to say?
Enamel. Yeah.
Yes, I putting
Or
in
shellac.
this shellac, and I think it's have a little bit in this solution of CH3. It's a little bit of caustic because it's nanocoating very fast, and different is separate. You see in the bottom I have also these Gans and a little crystals, but it's the manner how it's not mixing this cloud. And this is the coil, no? I put inside and it's formed this cloud of red. It's passing, and I have also this. Here is the same CH3 from the top. And now in this moment have the color of a little bit of green. It's not remaining yellow or orange color, the water. Here I have this. Is the shape is very elongate. It's very parallel one to the others. It can grow. It's how it's growing in different. Here it's like cutting with the blade. No, where is the glass? It's like a field continuous growing. I don't know how you see it. I showing you see here it's growing only in the left side of the jar because I have a closer I don't remember what Gans with also making the crystals. It's how it's growing in what direction. Here I have these two CH3 in the top it's a little bit green. In here it's with a little bit of sugar. It's more acidic. It's two different. No, one it's alkaline, one it's more acidic. This is the old in the here one piece of tap of iron. No, when you have the tap, it's rusty. It's settled down in the jar in the plasma water. It's growing this crystal in beautiful. You have so much layer here in the bottom, and where is this iron is growing like a star. Here it's much better seen. And after I want to show you from telephone how is growing the others in this year. Here I have a deuterium of CH2, I think. And closer I have a bottle of lead closer, and I think it's opposite, growing in direction I don't know, opposite. It's like a red line. It's take away or growing this. It's from one point to highlighting in different angle for seeing. And this is in the not time environment. I don't know, 10 degrees. Is manifested of temperature. I'm putting in the freeze I make one type of crystal. I put in the other thing. It's I show you now from the telephone. Screen. Okay. Gallery. There you go. Here I have these two. Now it's more olive, this blue. In 1, 2, 3 layers or 4 layers, crystallized. Here I have, perhaps it's better. It's like a salt, a teeny salt, a grossier salt. It's not this crystal. Here I have it's the same Gans for all of these years. No, and where is the other? There you go. Look at this, how it's growing, this crystal. I picture from top. And here you go. You see, it's the same gas, different condition, different time, different gas in surrounding. It's making different shape. It's beautiful looking for this type of. When Jalal saying, you have more alkaline or more acidic, how it manifests. I like it seeing this manifestation. When you change a little bit of temperature, because this is in the night, I have, I don't know, more or less 1, 2, it's like in the fridge, 4 degrees. And in different moment, in different year, is create a different shape. I'm sorry because I don't have in every day this picture, because I live in the city and this Gans is in countryside. It's the same Gans, but it's different crystals. Okay, I stop sharing.
Okay, well, thanks, Dan. Any questions for Dan?
Yes, I have a question for him.
Go ahead, Jalal.
Then if you play with the fields, not playing, if you're trying to measure the fields with your hand, is there a difference between them?
Different from create this sorry, for create this crystal modification shape of crystals, you're saying?
Yeah, all of these ganses what you have and the crystallization of them, is there a difference in the fields, in the sensation? What give you, what is the from in the emotion side, what give you, did you notice?
I don't in this moment I don't try it yet, how I feel, what emotion, what sensation have in this. I'm making an experiment. It's I play with the field, with the sensation, only with the coil hanging out this JJ soil sun, like Sabrina coils. This device what I playing a lot when I move in the coil, nano coating or not. I try it. Next time I tell you how I feel it and how how it's modified this shape of crystal.
You know
That
how to do it. You take
yes.
you take 1 drop, 2 drop, and go away from your fields, and take this drop in the wilderness or in the back room or anywhere away from all these fields, and see how you feel with this particularly one field of them, one type of Gans, and you write it what you feel. You write it, because simply we all always forget. You write it what you feel, and what is your emotion in that time. You understand?
Yes, Gerald, I understand. I'm making this experiment and I writing for not to forget.
Nice work.
And
Thank
okay,
you. Very beautiful
we
work.
thank we.
Thank we.
Okay. Anuj has a question in the chat. Hi, any thoughts on the creation of wireless plasma systems that KF will be shown in the Brazil conference? And if we look on the
Is this the comment or is the ask the question?
they're asking for people's thoughts on it. For any thoughts on the creation of wireless plasma systems that the Keshe Foundation will be showing in the Brazil conference? So I was just looking on the Brazil conference information here, and it says a new Spaceship technology wireless body enhancement systems coming up in 8th, 9th, and 10th of November 2019. And then
It's not
later,
all. It's not always the Wi-Fi connection, because from soul to soul or one soul or to the other, it's soul level, soul type. It's with Wi-Fi.
wireless. Yes. So it might be something like that. The energy systems, I believe, is the next one in Mexico, which is the plasma fields energy systems, supposedly to make the plasma enhancement unit, body enhancement spaceship unit, self-sufficient in its energy. But I think the one in Brazil is more like what you're saying. It's the wireless system, but it may not be the self-contained energy package of the unit. Anybody else have any ideas on that? It's probably a little hard to say until it actually happens. And that might cost you to be able to go and see. That one's in Brazil. And the other one in Mexico is on the 7th, 8th, and 9th of February 2020. There's also a Morocco and Malta event. And the previous one was in Vienna, Austria. Okay, anything else we should be covering here? Should we wrap it up for today? It's getting on to 1, 2, 3. It's early 10. Oh, we're more than 3.5 hours into it here. I didn't realize. Time flies when you're having fun.
Rick, hi, it's Dean from the UK.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Rick. Hi, guys. Just going back to what Jalal just said. It's from the teachings of Carolina, I believe. And I actually, I think I had CH3, CO2, ZNO, VIX, and I put a little drop in a container and mix them together. And put them in the palm of my hand and went outside and close to nature. And I found it very, very peaceful. I came very close to myself, and it was extremely peaceful. So emotional wise, it's very stabilizing. So that was my experience of it. And when I did that was when I started having lots of experiences with lots of things going on as well. So it had a big experience, and I'm pretty sure that was when after that, I started feeling those very strong symptoms with my hands. So I think that's all connected. So if you want that sort of tendencies, I would give it a try. Anybody got any questions on that?
Yes, Dean, I have one for you.
Okay.
Are you using the normal guns?
I believe it to be so, Jalal. Whether it is another thing.
Did you understand what Dan?
I saw some of it. I was out of the room for part of it, so I missed some of it. So I came in at the end. That's why I've just spoken about it.
Yeah. He make a different environment for the guns. It's the same guns what you use, CO2 or CH3 or any of them, but you force a different condition to him and see what happened to your guns.
Okay.
And then test. If you like, test separately, because if you do that, where it's acidic, where it's alkaline, you will have a 3 state of gas, the same one, but in 3 different: normal one, acidic one, and alkaline one. And I think with what you experience now, what you said, I think you are ready to experience more of that feels.
A higher experience. The trouble is, I'm getting to that point, Jalal, where, like a lot of people, I think if I push it on a bit further, I'll be on planet Zeus.
Yeah, Mr. Keshe always said you have everything inside your body, but because we are in meta state and thinking in meta state, that's why we don't use it.
I found recently, Jalal, that I've had to come back into matter state quite heavily with a thump to try and sort a lot of things out that I've got going on in my life at the moment. And the fields sort of collapse around you, and you lose that higher being sort of sense, and that comes and goes depending on how connected you are with yourself, and all sorts of, I don't know, things that you do with yourself to enlighten yourself. As soon as I quieten myself, become close with nature again and start being myself and being quiet. I raise the fields again, and then I go back into that state of mind. But as soon as I collapse the fields and I start, dealing with normal day stuff, it disappears for a while. So it's a matter of building it up to get back to that higher state again, I think. But like everybody, we have matter state things to deal with on a daily basis, and it drags you back down.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
And this is for all of us. What is the difference when you are in the forest, or when you are near the sea, or you are in your normal work, or you in the city? What is the difference?
For me, nature, being by the sea, just being in nature is a completely different feeling. It's a freedom. It's a beauty. It's feeling totally relaxed and at one, really.
The same fields, the same field in the forest, you have it in the city, but it's one thing we didn't consider, and the difference there is the openness.
What do you mean?
When you are near the sea or in the wilderness or anywhere, it's different from the city. The city, there is walls, there is doors, there is streets, there is law, there is, you see, lots of restriction, lots of
Interference.
There is interference wherever you go, but this you are in prison, but when you are near the sea or in the wilderness, it's opened, there is no ceilings, there is no walls. That's only
No
the difference
confinement.
between,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you think like this, and wherever you are, just take this, put yourself in openness, even when you are in the closet, there is a different feels, huh?
So Jalal, what you're saying is when you're in a box, think like you're in the open.
Yeah, just try it, because if you are in the box, there is a different field, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe
Containment. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe you can do much more in that, but no one taught us like this, what Mr. Cash teaching.
It's unraveling as we go along, and
Yeah.
but we're sort of, sometimes it comes and goes, and sometimes we stumble on it, and sometimes we get enlightened. It just happens.
Yeah, that's normal.
That's normal. Yeah, that's a learning process, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's like you have only 10 cells which elevated, and you have trillions still in the matter state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dim.
Thank you very much, Jalal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jalal. ¿Y puedo decir mi punto de vista? John, ¿puedes traducir, por favor?
Can I say my point of view?
Please do, John.
That's Jalal speaking. Huh?
No. You
Not Jalal, I mean Johnny.
Gianni. Go ahead, Johnny. You have to
Okay, thank you.
have traffic control here.
Jalal, tu pregunta para mí es muy importante y gracias por eso.
Jalal, the question towards me is very important, and thank you for that.
El oasis lo hemos hecho con la intención de crear el medio que hemos encontrado en el bosque, en la zona donde no hay interferencias.
The intention of making the oasis here is to have the medium we have in the middle of a forest, an openness.
Y eso es porque como viajamos mucho por la montaña,
This is because we travel a lot in the mountains.
es que sentimos la alegría siempre.
We always feel happy. The
Y la-
happiness there.
Y por eso fue para nosotros lo que sentimos y la intención de hacer el sistema Oasis.
And this is why we got down to doing the Oasis system.
Y gracias al señor Keshe, que con la tecnología del plasma, del alma, hemos podido lograr eso.
And thank you to Mr. Keshe for showing us the plasma technology and what we have acquired, the knowledge we have acquired to get to this stage of Oasis.
Y hemos podido lograr eso en un edificio con muchos pisos.
And we have managed this in a building with many floors.
En el centro de la ciudad.
In the center of the city.
En las casas fuera de la ciudad.
In the different homes outside of the city.
Y sí que podemos crearlo con el alma en cualquier sitio queremos.
And we can make this or reach this state with our souls in any place.
Gracias, Jalal, por la pregunta. Gracias a todos.
Thank you, Gianni.
Gracias, Gianni.
Anus has questions about the wireless plasma systems. Are they, maybe it's going to be devices that can do distance healing, or perhaps it could mean wireless could mean that. So I asked if anyone has experimented with building such systems using magravs or dynamic systems. Well, yeah, we've talked about that actually many years ago, starting in 2014 or 15, I think 2015, with the maggrav systems that people were building and running them all at once and having communications between them, you could say.
And you showed the seeds of it in your reactor groups. You remember? Before.
Which seeds? There's been many maggrav systems that people have been working with, and building and communicating with. And
yeah, the wireless with the 3 bottles, you know, remember?
3 bottles.
What do you call it?
It all depends on what we call wireless. Wireless is fields. So it's just about everything is all the same.
Yeah, I think you can listen to what Mr. Keshe said in the workshop, and if you pay attention to the workshop and what he really says about the what's going to happen in the next workshops, he describes how the systems will, once they get mass produced, they'll be hooked up to each other and they'll be able to run codes through them to be able to do the correct settings for the healing and that sort of thing. And it'll all be, there may be some sort of distance healing involved with that as possible. I don't know. You'll have to be at the show to hear what it's about, and you won't hear about it afterwards necessarily, because it's meant for the people there.
Yeah, may have to do with a G7, G8, and G9 he spoke about.
The following. You mean the following?
The generations of the wireless systems, the Wi-Fi, different generations.
Oh, possibly, yeah. He did mention something about the more advanced systems that we can hardly conceive of now. So everything that we think about it, though, is basically conjecture, and we don't know what Mr. Keshe is going to be doing in the actual conference. and the people there basically don't talk about it too much, and they might even not be allowed to talk about some of the aspects because of non-disclosure agreements and whatnot.
Till he lets the cat out of the bag.
Mm-hmm. You may or may not do that depending on the situation. Eventually, the cats come out of the bag, but right now there's some of the cats aren't coming out. As he said, if you try to take the new system apart to find out how it works, it will destroy the workings of the system. So it's kind of a, if you try to reverse engineer it, then you'll destroy it. So it's probably not a good idea to do that to your brand new 150,000 euro system, let's say. Let's take it apart and see what makes it work. Psst, what's that sound? Oh, I guess something leaked out. Uh-oh. Never quite the same after that. Why do people keep coming out with 4 legs?
Well, that's what the Hindus say. You shouldn't cut up your different bodies. Doctors shouldn't use the knife on your bodies.
Yeah, and they especially shouldn't use that needle, my estimation, but that's a whole other topic that could bring a lot of conflict here. Okay, I'm thinking we should wrap things up here, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind. If there's anything else you want to bring up, we could still do that. But we are into it for 4 hours here, and there's other things I need to get along to do. I believe we're starting to interfere with some other teachings as well.
You got 2 minutes left.
Just enough to say thank you, everybody, for attending today's Keshe Plasma Reactor group. As always, there's lots of interesting tidbits that came through, and some things that might even be revelations to some. And I know I had fun with the torus idea and playing with that. I recommend people find a way to play with your torus and bring the results back to the group so we can see what you've been doing and what revelations you might have found. All right, thanks everyone for today's Wednesday, October 16th, 2019 broadcast of the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group. And we'll see you next week, same time and place. And of course, for the Knowledge Seekers Workshop coming up Thursday at 9 a.m., I'm sure Mr. Keshe will have lots of interesting things to say. He's on a bit of a roll here, I think, and there's a lot of excitement and things happening with the Keshe Foundation, with Keshe Foundation Global, and the various aspects of all that on the Chinese end, and various things in the back burners. So we look forward to a good workshop. Alrighty, I'm just in the workshop now, and see you next time around.